Hello BigTube, hello friends, welcome to Lizzie Faye Loves Books. I'm Elizabeth, and in this video I'd like to kind of do an overall wrap-up of one of the big reading projects that I was doing this year. This is one of the smaller ones. This was my 25 in 25 challenge. Now this started out last year being my 25 by 25 challenge because I had hoped to complete this challenge before 2025, but as it happened, I was busy still working on another challenge that I didn't even finish until I think September of this year. So I did this challenge in the months of October and November. Now, it was originally going to be a 2-month challenge. It was just going to be in November and December of last year, but that's okay. This whole project kind of stems from the overall project that I have going and have had going in my house for a couple of years now, where I am acknowledging that I have too many books. I don't have space for all the books I have. The quickest way to unhaul the largest number of them and still get some benefit of having them is to identify the ones that I can get on audio through my library or one of the apps that I subscribe to, and listen to as many of these as I can, as quickly as I can, so that I can unhaul the ones that I don't feel like I need to keep. And to clarify, the ones that I would keep are ones that are part of a larger collection, or ones that I might want to keep and read again in print, or ones that I simply want to give a little more time to. So last year, I started my 60 by 60 challenge, which was predominantly women's fiction. I had gone through all the books on my women's fiction shelf, and then I supplemented that group of books with a few other random selections from other shelves in order to come up with a list of 60 plus books that I was pretty sure I could get on audio that I could listen to before I turned 60. I had a little over half done by the time I turned 60, and then I began to kind of drag my feet getting the rest of them done. Eventually I did. At the beginning of September of this year, I finally finished all 60 of those books, thankfully before I turned 61. So then it was time to work on this 25 by 25 challenge. And for this challenge, I went through my Christian fiction shelves and I pulled out at least 25 books that I own that I thought I could get on audio. Not the ones that were part of very large series. The biggest series that I pulled off my shelf was a series of 3. There were a couple of other duologies because I didn't want to get into big series for this. Those I'll put on my SAS list and, make those part of different challenges. But these were just a variety of books. There was one author that I pulled out 5 books by. 2 of them make up a duology and the other 3 are standalones. But all 5 of these books put together were taking up a lot of space on my shelves. So I wanted to listen to those as well. So because these are Christian fiction books, several of these I will probably end up taking to our church library and donating them or loaning them there. But some I will take to our bookstore to trade in. And I'm just going to kind of consider each one on a case-by-case basis. For one thing, the shop has some quality guidelines, so they will only accept books that are not beat up. They want them to be in good quality condition, so I'll look at that. I will also look at whether or not I think they are a good fit for our church library, because definitely, even though these are Christian books, I can see that some of the authors have theology that does not necessarily line up exactly with the theology that is taught in my church. And so I would not take those books. There are also a few of these books that I really don't feel like gave enough of a Christian message to even call them a Christian book. Now, that kind of brings up another point, which I guess I'll just go ahead and go into here, because if you're tuning into this video because I'm talking about Christian fiction, and you can agree or disagree with me, but to me, a Christian book is not a Christian book just because there are a few mentions of God or going to church. There needs to be an evangelical Christian message. Now, some authors do a better job than others. There are some that I would consider lightly faith-based, where they talk about faith and prayer, but they don't really get into the nitty-gritty of how to be saved, and they don't really get into a lot of talk about redemption and forgiveness. That kind of is where I draw the line. Because if there is a storyline that involves an activity that is pretty much accepted in the Christian community as being a sin and is excused without some sort of confession, repentance, or remorse on the part of the person who committed that sin, that to me is not sending the right message. I'm not saying that that person should be condemned, because obviously Christianity is not about condemnation. It is about forgiveness. We all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. That's in the Bible. But some of these stories talk about things that the characters are doing, and there's not a clear path to forgiveness and salvation from that. It's just kind of swept under the rug. And I don't know if the authors are just shying away from talking about that, but I think it's important. There are some authors that I think do a fantastic job of that. Beverly Lewis is one, I think, that is great. She, I think, I kind of consider her the queen of Amish fiction, and she does a fantastic job talking about being Amish versus trusting in Jesus, and the difference of that, and how you could, the Amish live a life of legalism, but that's not what God's plan is for us. But let me just say, there's no Amish books in this collection of books. I kind of keep those in a separate place in my home. I do need to go through those, though, and try to kind of apply this project to my Amish books, but perhaps I will wait until Amish in April. So there's a variety of topics here in this collection of books, and they're not really a collection. The only criteria really for a book to be a part of this project was that I believed it to be a Christian fiction book, and I owned a physical copy of it. So that, I just needed to clear some space on my shelves. And I was determined to get this finished by the end of November and not drag this project out any further, because these have been pulled off my shelves for over a year. And I have had them just stacked in a couple of boxes in my living room, along with various other boxes of books, which all had to get cleared out before Thanksgiving. So these had to get cleared out as well. And I moved them into the office until I could get this wrap-up done. And here I am at my kitchen table, and I'm going to show them to you. So let's get started. Now, of the 25 books, I rated 10 of them 5 stars. And then 12 of them I rated 4 stars, and only 3 of them did I rate 3 stars. And it's for some of the reasons that I kind of talked about before. Of the 3 that I only gave 3 stars to, the books themselves would be fine as just a women's fiction book about, families and relationships and things like that. There just wasn't enough of a redemptive Christian message in those books for me to rate them higher. Maybe they just didn't point to Jesus as much as I think a Christian book should. And maybe some of these others that I rated higher don't either, but I liked the story better. So the ones I rated 5 stars had a combination of a story I really liked and a good message. And I think those two things put together made it a 5-star read for me. So I'll start with the 5-star books, and a few of these have sequels, and a few of these have similar books that I didn't rate 5 stars. So I'll kind of go through and kind of compare and contrast as I go along. And let me know what you think in the comments. Let me know if you've read any of these. Let me know if you want to read any of these, and let's just chat about them. All right, the first one I want to talk about, I mentioned in my October wrap-up. This is probably one of my favorites of this project. This is Simple Gifts by Lloyd Copeland. I talked about this one a good bit in my October wrap-up, so I'll just refer you back to that. But this is about a woman who is the biological child of 2 special needs people. And I just absolutely loved it. I thought it was a fantastic book. There's a lot of issues brought up in it, and a lot of misconceptions, and a lot of self-analysis on the part of the main character, and I just thought it was wonderful. I did read a couple of other Lloyd Copeland books in November that I rated 4 stars, and I'll show you those in just a minute. Another 5-star book was by Terri Blackstock called Cape Refuge. This was a mystery thriller, and it was excellent. I just went back and looked, and I think I have read 11 books now by Terri Blackstock, and only one of them have I rated 4 stars. All the others I have rated 5 stars. So Terri Blackstock does not disappoint. She knows how to write suspense and thrillers in a Christian setting and tell a Christian message at the same time. This book is about a double murder of 2 people who ran a halfway house and helped people in need. And their 2 daughters now are left behind to pick up the pieces, and it just goes from there. I just thought it was excellent. In total, I read 5 books by Francine Rivers, and I rated 3 of them 5 stars. I think this is my new favorite now by Francine Rivers, and I don't hear this one talked about nearly enough. I thought this was excellent. This is called Leota's Garden, and it is a generational book about a family who is very dysfunctional. These people have some issues, and so throughout the book, you get to see how they work through these things and what they do. There are also some other characters that are not part of the family that come into play. And I just thought it was a fantastic book. I really enjoyed it. And this is one that I would read again. The Atonement Child was the very last book that I read for this project, and this was very good. Now, I want to compare this one to one of the Lloyd Copeland books that I read because both were very, very good. The Lloyd Copeland book is called Child of Grace. I only rated it 4 stars. I rated this one 5 stars, but both were very, very good. Now, both of these books deal with unwanted pregnancy due to assault and the consideration by the main character to get an abortion. I thought that both were very well done, that the topic was explored well, talked about, discussed, pros and cons, end result, the possible outcomes, all of that. And, this is a tough topic, and I thought that it was dealt with very, very well in both of these books. So if that's a topic that you wouldn't shy away from, that you would want to read about, then I would recommend either of these. This one's probably a little tougher. Francine Rivers does not mince words. She deals with some tough topics. This one's a little bit shorter, so, it wouldn't be as much of a time commitment. So I just thought that both of these were very good, and I would recommend either of them. But if you have the time, maybe check this one out, The Atonement Child by Francine Rivers. And then the other 2 books by Francine Rivers make up a duology. This is the first one, Her Mother's Hope. I did rate this one 5 stars. And then book 2 is Her Daughter's Dream. I rated this one 4 stars. I think I mentioned in my October wrap-up that this one was good, but there was once or twice when I really kind of wanted to throw it across the room if I had been reading it in print. I was listening on audio, so, I wasn't going to throw my phone. But this family is very frustrating at times. This is a generational series. It covers quite a bit of years, and it goes from mother to daughter to mother to daughter, and it was very good, very compelling. But just know that these people don't always do what's right. They don't always do what you want them to do. And there's some angst involved in all of that. But I thought they were very compelling stories. I also read Bringing Maggie Home by Kim Vogel Sawyer. I rated this one 5 stars. And I read the sequel to it, which is Unveiling the Past. And I rated this one 4 stars. This one kind of reminded me a little bit of The Berry Pickers, which I read back in March. And because of that, I'm kind of getting them mixed up in my head now. But this was very, very good. And it is about a child abduction, and now we've come 70 years from there, and the big sister of the girl who was abducted is finally telling her family that she had a sister who disappeared. And so they set out to try and find her and see if she is still living. And in this one, we still have some of the same family members, and they are trying to help solve a cold case of a young woman whose father left, disappeared, and then was accused of a crime and then was never found. So they don't know if he died or if he just escaped to try to escape this crime or what. So it was also very, very good. So let's go back to the Old West for the next one that I rated 5 stars. This is by Judith Pella, called Bachelor's Puzzle. I also read the sequel to it, which is called Sister's Choice. And you can see these are a bit quilt related. This one was very good. This is about a young man who ends up impersonating a preacher. Now, we start out meeting this little community who is waiting for their new preacher to come. They are out, on the wild frontier, waiting for a preacher. And this young man is trying to escape from some outlaws that are after him because he's maybe cheated them out of something. I don't know. And he comes upon this young preacher who has had an accident. He's fallen from his horse. He's injured and he's dying. And so he sits with him, and I think he ends up burying him after he dies and everything. And the preacher had told him that he was on his way to a church, and he asked him, would you go and tell them, what has happened to me? Well, instead of telling them anything, he just takes on his identity, and it goes from there. It was very, very good. Now, because it's out in the frontier, all these young women who know that there's an unmarried preacher coming, of course, set their sights on him. And so it goes from there. Then in this book, the younger sister of the female love interest in the first book gets her story and her romance in this book. So both of these go hand in hand, and they were very good. The next one I want to talk about is called The Memory Box by Penelope J. Stokes. This was one of my favorites of this whole 25 books, probably in the top 5. This is about a young woman who has just graduated from college, and she had hoped that her grandmother would be able to come to her graduation, but her grandmother has called and said that she's just not feeling up to it. She's under the weather, and so she'll see her when she gets home. She has been partially raised by her grandmother. I believe her parents had passed away a few years earlier, so her grandmother is the only family she has left. And when she gets home, she discovers a nurse answering the door. And she's like, who are you? And she's like, I'm your grandmother's nurse. And she's like, why does my grandmother need a nurse? And she said, well, she has pneumonia. And she's like, why didn't she tell me? And, her grandmother didn't want her to worry. Her grandmother wanted her to finish her finals and get through her graduation and all of that. So now she's back home, and this is her grandmother's home where she had grown up, but also it had been the family home of her grandmother's husband. I think he had grown up there. And so she goes to her room, and she's kind of digging around and discovers in a someplace hidden, she discovers an old journal. And she realizes that the person who wrote this journal has the exact same name as her. Well, it turns out that it's her great aunt. And the journal mentions a diary. So she searches and searches and finally finds this diary and starts reading it. Well, it turns out that the secrets revealed in the diary, secrets of some family abuse and things like that, go a long way to explaining some of the family relationships that she experienced in her own family. She finds out that perhaps her father was responsible for her mother's death. And I don't want to give too many spoilers. I just thought it was very good. But the really interesting thing is that she's trying to put this journal back in a hiding place because she doesn't want anybody else to see it. And she falls and hits her head. And when she wakes up, she is her great aunt. So it's like she's gone back in time. And she goes through and sees the the things that are happening in her great aunt's life and what causes a lot of the problems that have kind of the sins of the father that, are then, carried over to the children, that kind of thing. And I just thought it was very good, very compelling, very interesting. I had not ever heard of this book. I've never heard anybody talk about it. I just happened to find it at a library sale at some point, and it's been on my shelf, and so I was excited to see that I could get it on audio. It looks like this author has several other books, and I'm definitely interested in reading more by her. So yeah, if you ever get a chance to read the memory book, I believe it's on Hoopla, so if you want to grab it on audio and check it out, I would highly recommend it. Then I listened to a trilogy by Charlene and Baumbich, and the second book in the trilogy, Divine Appointments, is the one that I actually rated 5 stars. I really just enjoyed it more than the first one and more than the third one, but they were all really, really good. They were connected, but I think each really could stand on its own. So, if you ever just find one and you want to read it, I don't think that it would be a problem, but they are connected. The first book is called Stray Affections, and it's about a woman who is shopping and she sees a snow globe and she's about to pick it up, and another woman picks it up. And she's like, oh, I wanted that. Well, this snow globe has these dogs and a little girl in it. And there's something in her past having to do with dogs and herself as a child that she's never been able to get over. And so so this snow globe kind of starts the healing process of that. Then this second book is about the woman who was originally holding the snow globe that the lady asked if she could have. And this is her story. So she is a snow globe collector. And the interesting thing about their snow globes, these special snow globes, is that what they see in them initially is not what's in them later when they get home. So it's kind of a little bit supernatural, magical, but they are Christian books. There are stories of healing and kind of miraculous things. Anyway, very, very good. And then the third book, Finding Our Way Home. And I can't remember if this one relates to the other two or not, but it does have to do with a snow globe. It's about a woman who's a ballerina, and she has a snow globe that has a ballerina in it, and it has always kind of been what she considers her lucky charm, and it gets broken. And the next time she dances, she gets drastically injured and is not able to dance again. And so now she is an invalid. So now she has come back to her family home. Her family has all passed away, and she hires a young girl from the town to help her, to be her assistant. And it's just a story of her journey to healing and reconciling with her husband and things like that. So a very, very good book. And I thought the trilogy overall was really, really good. And like I said, I think you could pick up any one of these and read them. But if you have a chance to read all 3, then they're all 3 really good. But this second book is the one that I rated 5 stars. One more 5-star book is a biblical fiction book called The Centurion's Wife by Davis Bunn and Janette Oake. This takes place around the time of the crucifixion of Jesus, and I thought it was fantastic. I absolutely love Janette Oake, and I have also really enjoyed books by Davis Bunn, and when they write together, they really do some good work. Now, interestingly enough, I read another biblical fiction book set around the same time, and it's kind of a Christian classic, but I did not enjoy it nearly as much. And that is The Robe by Lloyd C. Douglas. This is very chunky. It doesn't look as chunky as it is, but it was a very long audiobook, and I thought it was just too long. I did enjoy the book overall. It is a very good book, and it's well loved, but I just thought it could have been, compressed down a little bit. It was just really long and a little bit dry in places, and so it just didn't hold my attention, and it was a little bit of a sludge to get through it overall. So I rated it 4 stars, and I rated this one 5 stars. Okay, I've got a few others that I rated 4 stars, and these are in no certain order. This next one is by Mary Connealy. It's book 1 in the Kincaid Brides series, and I definitely want to read more from this series and more by this author. This is my first book, I think, by Mary Connealy. It's called Out of Control. This was set back in the Wild West times, and it's about a young woman who is interested in geology, and she gets stuck down in a cavern, and the young man who finds her pulls her out and tries to, keep her safe and keep her away from danger, and she's just determined to go back in the caves and study geology. Well, it turns out that her father is not a good man, and she has a stepmother who is really not much older than she is, and they are in danger because their father, who is not a very good man, has some people after him, and so it just kind of goes from there. There's a lot of action in this, and I thought it was very good. Then this one kind of looks like a Wild West book, but it's actually set in modern time. It's about a young woman who has a childhood sweetheart. He had asked her to marry him when they were younger, and they were supposed to get married, and she just didn't feel right about it. She just didn't think it was time for them to get married yet, and she backs out of the wedding and then goes away to school and everything. And so now she's back from school, and she would kind of like to pick up where they left off. And he's like, no, he just feels rejected. And so they have to kind of work their way back around to trusting again and things like that. And I thought it was very good. This one is a sequel to one that I read or listened to a couple months ago. This one is set in 1929, so of course it's going to be about the stock market crash and the beginning of the Depression and things like that. This young lady here is the daughter of the main character in the book I read called Catherine, and Catherine was the daughter of a minister who moved them to Idaho because he wanted to start a church there, and they ended up staying. And so now, we've come forward several years, and it's 1929, and they still live in this little town of Idaho, and it just goes on from there. There is another story about her daughter, and I definitely will pick it up as soon as I get a chance. All 3 of them are on Audible Plus, so if you are a member of Audible Plus, then you would be able to get those there, and I thought they were very good. This one was pretty good. This is called On Hummingbird Wings by Lauraine Snelling. I don't think I've ever read a Lauraine Snelling book before. But this was about a woman who gets a call from her sister, and she says, you're going to have to come home because mom says she's dying. I can't get her to get up. I can't get her to do anything. And the young woman who is away from home has been away for some time. She has, I think, a big corporate job and everything, and it doesn't have a lot of time. But her sister, who has married and has children, has stayed at home or stayed in her hometown, is the one that's kind of ended up being the one responsible to help their mother. Well, their mother had been fine, I guess, up until recently, but she had what she thought was a mini stroke and then just decided that she was dying and didn't want to do anything. So the sister who's there with her calls the other sister and says, I need you to come. I can't do anything with mom. So when she gets there, then the sister who has always kind of felt put upon just kind of backs out of the picture, and it kind of forces this other daughter to step up to the plate and do everything that needs to get done and all of that. I thought it was very good, and I really enjoyed it. The mother is quite an interesting character because she really has just decided that she is going to die. And so it takes not only the daughter, but a few friends around to sort of bring her back to the living. And it was kind of a surprise ending. So I thought this was good. Definitely worth the time. And I do have one more by Francine Rivers that I read, and this is probably my least favorite. Now, it does take place in the Wild West, kind of the gold rush era, but I didn't love this one. I just didn't feel like it had as much substance to it as some of the others. This is called The Lady's Mind, and it is about a very strong female character. She has come out west because her mother has remarried, And they basically say, here, this is the inheritance from your father. It's out west. He had some land there he wanted you to have. You just go on out there and take care of that and leave us alone to our new married life. That's kind of the gist of it. So she goes alone out to whatever state it is, I don't know, with this land deed and everything. And she gets to this little town, which is pretty scary. There's maybe only like 20 other women, and I think like half of them are prostitutes. And she just has to kind of make her way in the world. And I thought it was very good, but it was a little bit long, as Francine Rivers books tend to be, and I just didn't find it quite as compelling overall. But still a very enjoyable story and a very likable character. There is a lot of action in the book and everything. It just wasn't at the top of my list, I guess. And I was listening to this kind of close to the end of the month and just needing to hurry and get done with it. So, if you like books about the Wild West and Gold Rush and all that kind of stuff, then you might want to take a look at this. Then that leaves the 3 that I gave 3 stars to. I don't really want to talk bad about these books because, 3 stars is still not a horrible rating. I just didn't enjoy these as much as the others, and I felt like they were lacking something in the Christian message in order to be called Christian fiction. So I'm just going to tell you what they are, and then you can decide for yourself if it's ever something that you would want to read. One of them is Surrender Bay by Denise Hunter. And another one is Hope Springs by Kim Cash Tate. I would like to try both of these authors again because I've heard good things about both. I just maybe think these were not the right books for me. And then this author I probably would not read again. Partly because I think she only has 2 books, and I've read them both now, and I didn't care for either one of them. This one I liked better than the other one, and I mentioned this in my November wrap-up if you saw it. I did also read by her The Secret to Hummingbird Cake, and I was kind of hard on it, and I did see that it was partially based on a true story. So, you can't really criticize reality, but I just didn't feel like there was enough in it to call it a Christian book. As a women's fiction book, it's perfectly fine. And that's kind of where I landed with this one. But this one was a little more enjoyable, a little less depressing, and just, overall a little better. Although I rated both of them 3 stars, I liked this one better. Anyway, this is called The Sweet Smell of Magnolias and Memories by Celeste Fletcher McHale. It's a beautiful book. It's about a young woman and a young man who were stranded on a rooftop during a flood with another family. A woman with 4 small children were also there. They are eventually rescued from there, but tragedy strikes again when they're trying to be rescued, and later on, they are able to find each other by accident, and it goes from there. It's a very interesting story. I just don't think that this author and I see eye to eye on theology, and it just didn't quite measure up for me to be a Christian fiction book. And the male love interest is a pastor. Now, pastors are human like all the rest of us. They're not perfect. But it just rubbed me the wrong way in some ways. So that's enough said about it. It wasn't horrible. It was an interesting story, and definitely a lot of good things happen in it. And I'll leave it at that. So that is my 25 in 25 Christian fiction reading project. Let me know in the comments, have you read any of these books? Are you interested in any of these books? Have you added some to your TBR because of this video? Or do you disagree with me about whether you think they're good or bad or whatever? Let me know in the comments. So that's all for this video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you're having a great day. Read a good book, and God bless you.